Aloha, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for our Talk Story session. I'm very excited to have my guests here today. My name is Kuʻulani Keohokalole, and I'm the owner of People Strategies Hawaiʻi. And my mission is to help strengthen the capacity of individuals and organizations for a better Hawaii. So I'm really glad that you're able to join us. And today's session, if you've never joined us before, it's just sort of a talk story, very informal, kind of like podcast. So we're going to ask that you can just keep yourself on mute. You don't need to show your video. So we know it's Friday, end of the day. You've probably been in Zoom meetings all day long. So you can just kind of kick back and listen to us talk. And then we are going to be open for questions and comments throughout and also at the end. So with that, I'd like to introduce my two panelists today. First, I have Noela Napoleon, and she is the owner and founder of Slush Puppies Hawaii, which is, if you haven't heard of it, it is an amazing frozen dessert here in Hawaii. She's been an active business owner for over 25 years, and I'll let Noela talk a little bit more about herself. And then we also have Jacq Hackett, who became a solo consultant in 2000 following an extensive career in public and community sector health, and she's joining us from New South Wales, Australia. So I'll let them both talk a little bit more about themselves and their businesses. And then just to remind us, we're really talking today about independent professionals and how in light of COVID-19, we can emerge with grit and grace. So with that, let me turn to Noela. Noela, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Let's see. Some of you know me. Aloha, Gwen, and some of my friends from all over the place. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, so I'm a mom, first of all, for many years, and my kids are in the 20s, and I raised my children and my beverage and ice cream business together. My husband and I, we started off first child, first business. So that was an exciting adventure. And it's brick and mortar. We do wholesaling of ice cream and beverages, products and equipment. And the brick and mortar business model is, it's kind of everything. You know, you're selling, you're talking to people, you need insurance. So it's kind of all the bells and whistles. And when I turned 50, when my daughter became a senior, I decided to go into business consulting so that I could help others who want to start a business or expand their existing business. So that's what I do now. And my business model is mostly business to business. I get hired by other businesses or nonprofits to consult with their clients. So that's what I do. And thanks, Ku, for having me today.
Thanks so much, Noela. I love the first child, first business. That's
Oh,
really, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Jacq, let's hear from you.
Yeah, hi everyone, and it's so nice to be here to join from Australia. So thanks for having me. So I am, as a little bit stated, I'm a consultant in public health, basically. So I started my consulting business 20 years ago, and all my clients are basically in either public or community services kind of sectors. So that might be the Ministry of Health and all the local health authorities, the hospitals, all those sort of things. And I specialize in evaluating and review of health services and programs and kind of solving complex problems in the health system. And I love it. And it's been a very, very good career for me. And a few years ago, when I first started, I had a mentor. And I never would have gone into consulting without that. She kind of, led the way and took me under her wing. And so because I'm kind of, getting towards the end, hopefully, of my career, the end bit anyway, not ready to retire, but, I'm getting towards that end. And so a few years ago, I decided that I really want to contribute to developing, kind of the next generation of really good public sector consultants. I've learned a lot in that time that I've been doing it. And so I also know, a bit like Noela, I have a kind of a new side of my business, which is to support and mentor other people who make the transition from consulting, from employment to consulting. And I really only focus on people who are in public sector and community services sector, because I know nothing really about corporate level consulting, consulting to big corporates. But yes, that's what I do now, and it's really good to be here.
Thanks so much. So now we can officially say that our talk story is international and global and reaching the world. I love it. Jacq and I, and this is Aria, and she this is working from home, right? As an independent professional, and now that we're all remote working. Jacq and I met on LinkedIn, and Jacq was wonderful about reaching out and saying, hey, how can I help you, especially given this time, knowing that all of us are experiencing just the craziness of the kind of turnaround of our world and our economy. Anyway, someone wants me to play her a movie on my phone right now. The show must go on. So what I want to ask both of you, maybe I'll start with you, Jacq, because you were kind of alluding to it, is how has COVID-19 changed your business, maybe your practices? What new things have you been doing in light of COVID-19?
Yeah, sure. So when COVID hit, I was very fortunate to have work on. There are times as a consultant when you're in a bit of a lull or you're just finishing up things, but I was I'm very thankful. I was right in the middle of one project and just starting really with another. And so those projects have both continued, and I am very grateful about that. One of them's finished now, but the other one is a very important piece of work. And so the Ministry of Health thankfully kept that going. And so I'm getting to the tail end of that. But I have had nothing in the pipeline at all that's come in, so I'm okay for now. And I now have a piece of work that's come in from a colleague, because I collaborate with others sometimes, and she got a bit of work that's a bit too big. So that's great, but it is definitely quiet. It is definitely, I'm thinking, I don't know what's ahead now. So yeah, so I've been busy, which is great, but I have also really done quite a bit of that reaching out to others in this time, because when, in my role as mentor and coach, I didn't want to just do nothing. I kind of wanted to step up. I thought, oh, well, gosh, this is the time to be a leader or a mentor in this space. And so you probably know this, but I put a video on LinkedIn that just basically said, I don't know how I can help, but I'd really love to help if there are things that I can be doing in my role as mentor and coach. And some really great things have come out of that, which we can talk about. But yes, so I've been really stepping into that and building a bit of a sense of community amongst people who are new and newish to consulting.
Absolutely. And that's amazing. And that's, I saw that video, and that's what made me reach back out to you was your just genuine offer to help and be of support to people during this time. Noela, how about you? How has this impacted your business?
So my consulting practice, like Jacq, I did have work in the pipeline already. I had several contracts already in play. And so my biggest challenge in the first weeks of COVID was learning all of this. I'm 55. I considered myself relatively sort of technology savvy, but when this happened, I was literally brought to tears. I had to learn. I knew Skype, okay, got that, but I had to learn Zoom, Microsoft Teams, one more obscure thing someone asked me to go on. But it was really pivoting to this style, which I love now, but it was being brave enough to take it on and to say, yes, I can do this. Half the time I really wanted to throw my hands up in the air and say, I can't do this, but I can. And I just had to do that self-talk. So the first challenge was just, I had work to do, but couldn't access it. And so, and then I had to decide, because I do have, like many of us out there, we have a job, and then we're trying to develop our consulting practice, right? So I had to choose now, because my job needed me, but yet I have these gigs that I have to do. So it was a matter of a lot of thinking and decision making.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because like we talk about the cycle of grief, And it really feels like we've kind of gone through that, or we're going through that, you know, like you mentioned, the first thing being, oh my God, how do I got to learn this stuff? And sort of that feeling of maybe helplessness or loss. And I know I heard a lot of people being like, well, let's just put it on hold for now, but as soon as things open back up, let's get back to it. And I think more and more we're realizing, oh, wait a minute, this is probably going to be the, you know, the new way of doing things for a while. So how do we adjust and pivot to stay relevant? I think one of the things I want to kind of ask you guys about is this notion that things have to be perfect, or that, you know, maybe we had a plan, and for those who like to really stick to a plan, it can be really, really tough to fight those urges to sort of have everything tied nicely with a bow. For either of you, how have you sort of, if you do have those perfectionist tendencies, how have you sort of kind of adapted or adjusted to this?
I'll defer to you first, Jacq.
Okay, thanks. Yes, I have to admit to the odd perfectionist tendency. You know, I think those of us who go into these kind of businesses, we've got pretty high standards of ourselves. I know I do. I really always striving to do the very, very best that I can. But the thing about being in COVID is that there's much more, it's been a bit of a leveler in a big way. You know, everyone's struggling with various aspects of it. Some of the things you talked about, Noela, and, you know, the clients are struggling with those too, and people are at home with their kids and trying to homeschool and do all sorts of things. And I think that it's really pushed a lot of us, and me included, to just chill out a bit about it. Like, in terms of those perfectionist things, I mean, I'm still doing a very good job of the work and then what I produce for my clients. But no, you know, we do sit in our lounge rooms, or, I mean, I've worked from home anyway, but, you know, we do sit here and talk to others in their, you know, sometimes in their pajamas, you know, from the bottom down and all the rest of it. And we all know that that's what's going on. So I do think it's a good leveler and a good kind of reminder about, we cannot cover every base here in our lives, in our businesses, and we've just got to be flexible. I mean, that's the other thing that's really, really struck me, is how much we have to be a bit agile in our thinking now about what's next. Because, you know, we're in this bubble a bit at the moment, but we in Australia are starting to come out of it. And so while we're right in the bubble, I think you can just kind of go, well, this is the bubble that we're in. But this time right now, where things are starting to open up and starting to look at what is next, that's, you know, potentially scary, but potentially lots of opportunities, I think.
Yeah, and it's actually, thank you for reminding us about that, is that you folks are starting to come back and seeing, you know, you're there to testify that that there's still the need to continue to adjust and adapt. Noela, how about for you?
Okay, so yeah, we last week, I think, yeah, we talked about these events. The analogy is grief, right? So the first phase of grief is shock, right? And in shock, it's like, imagine when that big if a bomb goes off, you can't hear, you can't see, you can't speak. Well, you're still trying to figure out what the heck just happened, right? And then denial, you know, just trying to get along with your day as is, act as if, oh, this is going to go away anytime soon, right? And then the anger, the grief, the crying, you know, now it's hitting home. Then the anger, and then finally the acceptance. And I know for a fact, just talking to Ku'u, all my colleagues, you know, we've all gone through, humanity is going through this. The difficulty is, in this moment, when I'm in one of those phases, and they don't just go from, you know, one phase in a straight line, they happen in cycles, and Jacq can probably attest, she's in healthcare, right? It's a cycle. So just remembering that you might, in one whole day, go through grief, anger, acceptance, grief, anger, whatever. It's not from here to, you know, here. So just realizing that, let's move past the shock because there's no use in staying there. Just keep moving. It is very normal. And if some days you just want to chill out, I don't know, I've never watched Netflix very much, but now I'm just Netflix binging because I give myself that whatever peace you can give yourself to just let yourself have a moment, then it's okay. I feel.
Yeah. It's, that's interesting. You talk about the emotions that we go through, right? Because I find myself on some days on such a high, so excited, like for things like this, I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. And then in the same day in tears and not wanting to get out of bed and feeling depressed. So I think it's very normal. I think that's the humanity in all of this. So I know that some of the projects you're doing now are pro bono. You're just sort of getting resources out to the community. Jacq, do you want to talk about the Zoom groups you've been pulling together and things you've been doing there?
Yeah, so it's been really great. So as I said earlier, I put this video out saying, what can I do? And I got so much response and reaction from people. And it kind of morphed into, I had no idea what it would become, but what it's become is that I'm now running these fortnightly Zoom sessions for anyone to join who wants to join. And so in the first, so I run it because I have people from all parts of the world really who were interested, consultants who are working in the UK and Canada, in the US, obviously in Australia, in New Zealand. So we have people from all over who wanted to join. So I realized I couldn't do it once in a week. I was going to have to do 2 time zones. So that's what I do. I run it in 2 time zones and time frames, and people can join anyone that suits them. And in the first sessions, the first week of sessions, we just kind of talked about what we wanted, what did we want from this sort of group. And it was really interesting because people really wanted connection. They really wanted connection at this time, because as people who run often solo businesses, consultants are often working solo. So you're kind of potentially a bit isolated anyway. Mm-hmm. But in these times, that's a much greater sense of isolation. And for those of us who've been in business like me for a long time, we've had a few ups and downs over the years. All of us have had peaks and troughs. But if you have just started out, even in your first couple of years, and COVID hits, then that's a lot of potential anxiety right there about what, you may not even have really found your feet yet. Mm-hmm. And your confidence about the future as a consultant, and then you've got COVID. So we talked a lot about what we wanted, and definitely connection, but they also a whole list of like topics and subject matters that they really wanted to discuss, and so every fortnight we choose a topic now, and I sometimes run a poll on the Zoom call to say, okay, what's the next topic you want to discuss? Right. This week we discussed marketing. Everyone wants to know about marketing and how do you do it? How on earth do you do it in the current environment? That sort of thing. So I put together a bit of a presentation with some thought, questions, things like that, and I give, my sense of advice about something, what I know and what I've learned. And then we open it up and, have discussion, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's been very rewarding for me to do it. Yes, it's something, that I do, and it's pro bono and all the rest of it. And it's free for everyone to join. But it's also really, it's kind of a bit humbling in a way to have a group of people who come together and give up their time and really want to learn how to become better consultants during this time. So yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, that's wonderful and so necessary, right? I mean, the fact that you have people all over the world joining it. I told Jacq I tried really hard to stay up till 10 p.m. on Wednesday to join, but I just, my willpower couldn't quite keep up with it. Noela, how about you? What have you found yourself being busy with these days? Oh, you're on mute.
Am I off now?
Yeah, you're good.
So as far as the reciprocity part, yeah, I like doing these webinars because I learn every time I do it. I learn about the audio, I learn about all of these things, and that in and of itself is a skill set, right? So I'm spending my time, yeah, giving. I do have clients, but a lot of those contracts are not happening because of COVID. Therefore, I find it useful for me, for my practice, just to, yeah, to do pro bono. Even before I started my practice, I had to start somewhere. So before I turned 50, long time ago, I tried to be a consultant. I really tried, but nobody wanted my advice. So I give that up. But I was giving pro bonos and nobody was, taking me seriously. So I ended up, giving it up. However, I didn't give up the dream. So that's the important thing is as you're developing your practice to, I think, to maximize your return, on your investment of time, of emotion, the biggest wisdom I think I can find is just make sure that whatever you are offering is something of great value. So, for example, I have a lot of work right now because it so happens that I'm helping people with how to apply for those federal funding that's coming down, right? That's of great value. And I've had to become, sort of knowledgeable about CARES Act and PPP, and that's what we call our funding over here, Jacq, PPP and EIDL. So I've had to become a quick read because my client wants me to provide that information to the public. And so I spend my time focusing on those topic areas that are highly valuable to my clients right now. Right? And then we can develop a bevy of topics to consult on to get ready for the economy to open again. But really just, doing freebies, doing pro bonos, because we're getting something out of it. And it helps us to build our skill sets for when the economy opens again. Learn new skills, that's what I want to say.
I agree. I know we hear that saying, like, sometimes clients don't know what they need, or like they don't know what they don't know, right? And so just to share for myself, prior to COVID, I had helped 2 organizations roll out remote work policies for their company. And so when COVID hit, I was like, oh my gosh, this is something I can help share. And I realized as I was sort of reaching out that some of the clients, the organizations, they weren't even there yet. They're like, well, hold on, we're not sure we need that yet. We're going to kind of figure this out, right? I think people were still trying to see, can we just, have people kind of spread out, wash their hands a lot, right? And then it became clear, like, no, that's not going to be enough. And they needed remote work tips. But anyway, so in that short interim, I just started blasting out, webinars or tips or whatever. Again, just free, but I feel sometimes it's our role to sort of help look around the corner and help people see, like you were saying, anticipating what's going to be coming down, and how do we help be relevant and helpful in these times with that. Yeah, go ahead, Noela. Did you want to say something on that?
No, yeah, it is. It's about being sort of proactive, do a lot of reading. What's the next thing? Because one of the things we've learned is that every day is a new day, right? So for consultants, I don't know how Jacq feels, but the time is ripe if you're a consultant, because problems are challenges, and problems, that's what we that's our bread and butter, right? So we have so many problems right now. All of us consultants, hey, you just choose choose the one that you feel that you can provide deep value in, so that you can, one referral leads to another, right? So it's kind of a good time it's a terrible tragedy for the world, but they need us. People need us out there. So look for problems that you can solve. Look ahead.
I couldn't agree more. I think, you know, because you're absolutely right. That's what we're in the business of as consultants, solving the challenges or problems that our clients face. And it's mostly in their organizations, or for me, it's in the health system. It's there's some issues and challenges out there. And that's what we're good at. We're good at figuring out how to work with others to get those problems solved. And, you know, some of those problems for your clients will be the same as they always were. Some of them are going to be faced with, you know, the same kind of problems, but there's also going to be some new challenges and some new problems that organizations are faced with. And I kind of think that we need to be ahead of the game in that and trying to anticipate what they are. But also I think we can actually ask our clients, you know, just, it's like, again, it's, you know, reaching out and actually finding out what people are struggling with. You know, what are some of the big challenges that they're facing? So for me in health, I've you know, there's people, I learn a lot from listening to the others on the Zoom calls about, you know, I also have my own support group as well that I set up. So my consulting peers, if you like, here in Australia, and there's about a dozen of us who get together every 3 weeks via Zoom to have these chats about how we're all going. So again, reducing the isolation. And I'm hearing a lot from, we share a lot about what we're doing and how we're reaching out to people. And there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity right now for consultants. People are doing all sorts of things about, you know, somebody the other day was talking about that they're doing some work for a client who they want to survey all their staff about what they've learned during the isolation, what aspects of the way they work do they want to keep, what do they never want to go back to doing again, you know, all of that sort of thing. So as businesses come out, I mean, that is, I presume, going to be a common, you know, issue that people want to deal with, is what do we do now? So as businesses start to think about going back to normal, whatever that is, and coming out of isolation, I think there's a real opportunity for us to help figure out with them what that new normal might look like in the future. Because we don't want them going back. We don't want all of us going back to exactly how everything was. So I do think there's a great opportunity here.
Yeah. What about you, Noela? What do you think are some of the things consultants should be anticipating, or questions they should be asking themselves?
In order to prepare for consulting work?
Yeah.
So first, I suggest a self-assessment, because when we started our practice, it was in a different world, right? So we start with a self-assessment, and what is that? It's just looking back at, I don't know, the last 5 or 10 years. What are those skill sets that you feel that you are really good at, really strong at? And like Jacq said, there may be things that you just don't like. You know, you don't want to deal with it, and that's fine. That's one of the glories of being a consultant. You get to choose the areas that you want to engage, right? So do a self-assessment. The way I do it with my clients is I have them take a look back to each of their jobs over the last 10 years, whether it's 5 jobs or 3 jobs, right? Career-based. And you just look at your resume and you say to yourself, well, all right, I'm a great grant writer, but gosh darn, I never want to write another grant. Maybe I will consult with someone to help them write a grant, you know, but I don't want to write a grant anymore, like that. So a good way to start and to see what you might be able to offer the new world is to look at your current skill sets, your current experiences. You know, what are you good at? What are you not so good at? And what do you absolutely not want to do? Check that right off. Okay, just scratch it off your list and focus on those areas that you like. And also, hopefully, people need that, right? So first, it's about looking back and self-assessing. I'm a huge believer in assessment. Assess, assess, assess. Because as you go to counsel your clients, right? Here's a big one that really derails a lot of consultants, I believe, and I know Jacq will be able to speak to this. So let's say you have a new client, or you're looking at potential new clients. If we're not asking them the right questions, what is their real, and listening, you know, because most of consulting is about listening, not talking. It's about hearing what they're saying. Your clients will tell you exactly what the problem is. And you'll be able to get underneath the problem and reveal more, expound upon that, enhance their understanding. So first assess yourself and see what skill sets you'll be able to bring into the future, what wisdom, what knowledge. Then you're going to look for clients that match what you have to offer to what they need, their problem, right? And then get ready to listen hard. And that's where that complexity comes in. And be prepared to tackle the hard issues. Even if you have to go research, you have to Google, even if you have to learn it, you're bringing your wisdom, your heart, your ability to be patient, and you're going to couple it with these challenges. And that's what's going to make you an excellent consultant. Not that you're the guru of the world, you know, but it's our ability to help people. That's the magic. Certainly, there's probably more brilliant people out there, but we have something special because we want to help people, and we're good at that.
That's really wise advice. Thank you for that. I love the idea of a self-assessment. It's interesting, right? Because I think some of us have realized, oh, I didn't realize I had this skill, you know, right? Like a special talent or something.
Yeah, so print out your resume or print out, you know, just write and just look, and you'll be shocked and amazed at your quiver full of skill and knowledge built up over the years. I can't say this to a 21-year-old, right? I mean, some people want to be a consultant and they haven't built up the credentials yet, or just the wisdom or the knowledge. And that's the one good thing that comes of age. Once you hit into your later 30s, 40s, 50s, age is good that way. So look back and self-assess and choose the things that people need and that you're pretty good at.
Yeah. And I would make a pitch out to fellow millennials too, that tech skills and the ability to do these things is also a great thing. So you may think, you know, you just kind of do it naturally, but if there's ways you can teach others and provide that training, that's a good place to share as well.
That's big, Ku'u, actually. I would say, I'm anxious to hear what Jacq has to say, but your text, yeah, you take it so for granted because you just all these things. But people like me, we hire people like you who can really make us shine, like who makes us shine out there.
And shout out to Brian, our tech support guy, who's also helping us shine today too. So actually, I want to ask Jacq about this. So let's say, you know, we've figured out a way to adapt. We've done a self-assessment. We kind of get a good sense of, okay, I have these skills. Now let's talk about the marketing thing, because I think you're right. I think there is some feeling of, ooh, that's not, you know, that's kind of a faux pas in a time like this. What thoughts? I'm curious what the group came up with that you talked with, and just what your thoughts are about marketing yourself.
Yeah, sure. Because, you know, the first thing to say is that I don't think there's a single consultant I've talked to in the last, I don't know, few years who doesn't tell me that they really hate marketing. That's the one aspect of their job that they're really uncomfortable with, and they're really, you know, just like, yeah, really, you know, just murky about it, and don't, you know, feels wrong to be doing it. So I think that's the first thing to acknowledge, is that we all hate this. None of us really feel really comfortable doing it, but we have to get over ourselves. We have to get over ourselves because we're in business, and we are in business, and that means we need others to, you know, contract us for our services. And I've done a lot of thinking about what is different about marketing in our sectors. You know, we're not selling in the private sector. We're not selling, you know, retail, which you'll be very familiar with, Noela, etc. It is a different environment. The public sector, the government sector, the community services sector, the not-for-profit. It's a different environment, and so selling isn't in its DNA, because we are really all about providing good service and support not just as consultants, but if you work in those sectors, that's what they're about. They're about making a difference in the community, to individuals, to broader communities, to making things better, to improving the quality of things. That's what we're in the business of doing. And so marketing and selling just kind of does not fit there for us in our heads. But the way I like to think about marketing is that it's really just about getting others interested in our services and, and our programs. And we have to get other people interested, otherwise our businesses will fail. And I don't think any of the ways that people sell other kinds of products works for us, because really we get all our work from our networks. Well, certainly, I mean, I'm seeing you nod. I mean, I presume it's the same way there. Our work comes from networks, referrals, repeat business, people who tell others about us, that sort of thing. And so I think it's really all about, firstly, getting on the radar of potential clients and then staying on it. And there are strategies for both. And we talked quite a bit about this in the Zoom call this week, because what it's like, how projects come to us is actually pretty random. I think, someone's sitting in a meeting or an office or something, and they've got something that comes up and they think, oh, great, we really need a consultant to do this. And so what happens then is they either think through the list that's in their head about, oh, now who would be good for this? Or they ask someone else, they say, who do you know who's good at this kind of work? And so there's a list, there's this mythical kind of list that's in people's heads of who are those consultants that could be good for this. And you absolutely want to be on that list. You really want to be on that list so that when the opportunity comes up for something that fits for what you do, you're the person that comes to mind. So that's actually how I think about marketing, because you've got to get on the radar. You've got to be on that list. And there are all sorts of ways to do that. Not rocket science ways, reaching out to people, letting them know what you're doing, be upfront about, I'm a consultant and I need projects. I don't mean you say it like that, but that's actually, everyone knows that. Everyone knows the deal. They know that consultants need work, and that we're in the business of helping. So you've got to keep that in your mind about, and then once you're on the radar, you got to work at keeping on there, because people forget you. I've been doing this for 20 years and people forget me. People completely forget that you're still there and you're doing things, and they suddenly get reminded of you. So, I always find reasons to be in touch with people. Could be just done all sorts of things over the years, but, people I know well, obviously you can arrange to have a coffee with or something in non-COVID times, but, to just reach out to people with an excuse. Hey, I've updated my capability statement. Just thought you might be interested. A 3-month newsletter. Here's just thought I'd like to let my clients know what I've been doing in the last 3 months, the kind of projects I've been working in. Hey, I've got a bit of spare capacity right now because a project's just postponed, so just let me know if there's anything I can help with. And you always tell people to pass your email on to others. Please feel free to pass this on to others who might, other colleagues. So you're just actually getting back onto that list constantly, so that the random moment when that person has a project in front of them, you're kind of still front of mind of that. And so that's how I think about marketing in a general sense. Obviously, I'm just giving you the 2-minute spiel about it, but that's really how I think about it. So when we've had discussions about what changes in COVID, I think some of the things change and some of them stay the same. But I actually think that there's an opportunity to be even more transparent about where we're up to. Because, as I said earlier, I think it's been a big leveler. Everyone's anxious. People in employed situations are anxious. Is my job going to keep going? What's the organisation going to look like? And if you're a leader, you're anxious about how am I going to lead this organisation through this, terrible crisis? How are we going to come out the other side? Everyone's worried. People are worried about their families. People are working from home. They've got kids on their laps. And, it's a very, and so I actually think it's okay to be more transparent and reach out. The whole thing about how can I help? is there something I can help with? But B, to be honest about, hey, I know we're all struggling. That's true for consultants too. We're struggling, and if there's any business that you have that would help, feel free to get in touch. So I do think it's time to be less scared of marketing and maybe just a bit more honest about, times are tough, and they're tough for all of us. So if there's things that I can do to be helping your organization, please reach out. And then you can also, of course, consider the things like reduced rates and offering to do things you mightn't normally do, because so many organizations are really focused on COVID and managing through that. And so some of the aspects of their core business that they'd normally just be getting on with, they're falling behind. And so I've known some consultants have been reaching out to people and saying, hey, have you got kind of those core business tasks that you think, I could be helping with? So it's not stuff they'd normally do as a consultant, but, I'm prepared to step in. It's like we need to be able to see each other as, how can we all help each other get through this? Yeah. So they're just some of my thoughts, but we had very good discussion about it on the Zoom call. So yeah.
Yeah, that's some really, really good tips. And you made me think, I know I see the list of who's on our call today, and I know a lot of you folks have done amazing consulting work for your past clients. And so you made me think, it might be a good time to go back to your past client who knows of your good work and say what you said, like, times are tough, and could you refer me to some of your colleagues or other businesses who might be looking for a consultant? So maybe they're not looking for one, but they would be happy to pass your name on and give a recommendation because you've done some great work for them.
Yeah.
Noela, as we talk about branding and marketing, are there strategies that you want to share with the group?
Sure, I would echo Jack's advice, because for consultants, the number one thing is rapport building, and it's a face-to-face, Zoom to Zoom. It's really about relationship building in consulting, because people want to know. They don't want to recommend someone they don't know. Because that would ruin their reputation. So if you just, like Jack said, do a check-in, send an email. Hey, I do try to keep in touch with my clients, even if it's just to say, hey, how are you doing? This is what I'm doing. Some people, and I agree, Ku'u, some people don't know that there is a problem. So, for example, I'm going to pick on one of my friends here listening today. Hey, did you know that the new ADA rules require, if we're having all these Zoom meetings, requires that you provide some accommodation for people who are hard of hearing or partially, can't see. Did you know that? Hey, guess what? That's what we specialize in, especially in these times, and everyone's doing visual, audio. So if you have a service I'm going to get that deals with creating accommodations for these new work methods, get out there and let people know you're here to help them be compliant, ADA compliant, especially now that we're all involved in this. Don't let people down, and include everyone on your Zooms and give access to everyone. Sometimes people don't know a problem is a problem. And if you're there to let them know, then who else are they going to go to? They're going to be so grateful that you made them aware. They might not hire you right then and there, but they're gonna think of that first name that came, the person that reached out. So it is a matter of networking. Attend the webinars that are being given. Do a webinar. Ku'u, I have to say, she didn't ask me to say this, but she will make you look fabulous. So if you're going to invest in things that are going to help you to improve your personal profile. On the practical level, you can do things like LinkedIn. I'm sure everybody has a LinkedIn here. You can, and I agree with Jack, it's not that you're self-promoting, right? I used to think that our people here in Polynesia, that we just have an issue with that, or Asian people, but it's not true. It's all over the world. I think it's a woman thing. It's a human thing. artists, they don't like to self-promote. They hate marketing, right? And we're like that because we're putting our personal self, or it seems like we're doing that, on the line. But we're not really. It's our services. So remember, you have a service to offer, and it's not about you personally as a human being. It is, but you're marketing your service, not your heart. Your heart comes with, but don't think of it as you're exploiting and you're self aggrandizing because you have to let people know that you're available. Yeah,
I like that. Thank you for giving us the permission to really, value ourselves and what we have to offer, especially during this time. I will say, in Hawaii especially, I'm sure it's this way in Australia, but especially in Hawaii being such a small place, it really is all about the relationships. And, they talk about 5 degrees of separation, but I think in Hawaii it's like 2 or 1. Everyone knows everybody in some way, shape, or form. So one thing I've been doing is using my Zoom account to just have coffee meetings with other people and even other consultants just to talk about what we're doing and how we can support each other. So I would really strongly encourage the continued fostering of those relationships. Thank you so much. You've shared a lot in the short amount of time. I want to open it up to questions or comments from our participants. So feel free to either use the chat or unmute yourself. And what questions or thoughts do you folks have? I see Deb said she agreed with you, Jacq. She's been a consultant for 15 years and most of her work comes from word of mouth. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for putting these on every week. I'm a newcomer to Hawaii and moved my consulting practice here just a few months ago, and then COVID hit. So yeah, it's really been interesting, but I love hearing what you're both saying and the conversation. It's actually very reassuring to me that I'm I'm on the right track, and forgive me if is it Noela? Noela, you were saying that it's about relationship building, and then having, and that's what I'm trying to do, even over Zoom, and even in the midst of this. The one thing I really struggle with, and I don't know, maybe others on the phone do or on the call do too, is pricing. And I heard someone say offering lower rates during this hard time, and acknowledging we're all going through a hard time, and being self-employed, it's a bit challenging even in quote unquote normal times to get pricing right, and especially when you're serving government and nonprofit. It's such a landscape of scarcity, and people want you to work for free, and there's just so many things that come with that. So I'd love to hear any advice or tips about how you structure contracts, or how you talk about the money aspect of consulting, and just ways to make that more comfortable. And yeah, I think that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, really good question, and welcome, Deb. So Jacq or Noela, any thoughts on pricing? Well, Jacq, you're the one that talked about it, right? Reducing rates.
Yeah, I think there's just the one other, probably the number 2 issue of other than marketing that consultants get very uncomfortable about is talking about pricing and money. And it's another thing that we have to kind of get over, and when we start out, and it's not surprising that we struggle with it, because when we come from being an employee and you negotiate your salary potentially, or you go for a job and there's a salary, but as a consultant, you've never had to kind of really negotiate this on a project by project basis. You've never had to say, okay, this is what I'm worth on a daily basis, and this is how much value I'll be able to give you for that. You kind of just got on with the job once you got the job, whereas we're very accountable to the deliverables that we say that we're going to provide. So the advice that I always give people about pricing when they first start out, and I don't know where you're at, Deb, in your, in your consulting kind of journey, but so people come to consulting, and whatever work you're doing in your jurisdiction, there will be a range, a market range for what consultants charge for the kind of similar kind of work that you're going to be selling as your services. So that's the first thing you need to figure out. What is the range that the market supports? And when you first start out, and so you find that out by talking to other consultants, by asking them what they charge now, what they charge when they first. You've got to do a little bit of research and be prepared to ask about money. If you've been on the other side of it, you may have contracted people yourself, so you'll know a bit about what consulting rates might be, or you'll know colleagues in organizations who will have contracted colleagues. So reach out to them and ask them. So you need to know what this range is. And then, so that's what it will support. But when you first start out, you got to choose somewhere in the middle-ish, because you cannot charge the top-notch rate at that point. Yes, you may have come from a very solid background, come with a great career, loads of skills, but you've never had runs on the board as a consultant. You haven't proved your worth there, and that's a learning curve. So you can't charge the top dollar, you can't go there. But I really discourage people from charging right down the lower end, because it also gives the wrong message about, you look too cheap, maybe you're not that good. And you haven't got runs on the board, so no one's got anything to test it on. So I definitely think figure the range and find yourself somewhere comfortably in the middle-ish of that. And then gradually, as you get a reputation, you build it up. On the issue of when people ask you to work for less than your daily rate, or you feel like you want to work for less than your daily rate. In non-COVID times, and I think I would apply the same. Yes, I might offer to work for a cheaper rate. When I work for non-profits versus, the Ministry of Health, I will generally kind of offer to do that for a lower rate, or sometimes, depending how big the organization is. But I always make sure they know it. I always make sure that in my consultancy proposal, I state that, my normal rate for doing this piece of work would be this much, and I'm happily, doing it for this. Because I do think we don't want to just undervalue ourselves. There's good reasons sometimes to want to offer a reduced rate, but I don't want to be whittling away my daily rate over time. I want to be choosing the times very carefully and very purposefully as to when I would do pro bono. Now is one of those times. And a great example the other day, I don't know if you have, we have the government incentives that you talked about. We have something called JobKeeper, where we're getting, for people in business, you can get money from the government to pay some of the salary of some of your of your employees, etc. And as people in business, when we're getting some of that too here. And one of the consultants on my Zoom calls the other day said that, so she's getting $1,500 a fortnight from the government. And she got in touch with a community-based organization that she had done some work with before, but she knew they were having some issues that they hadn't been able to get solved. And she reached out to them and said, I will give you 1 day a week of my time because I'm getting this money from the government, and that's a way I'd like to show that I'm making good use of it. Fantastic. So she's offering her services 1 day a week to this company, and she has got some other paid work out of it, so, so yeah, I think the pricing thing is tough, but that's how I kind of approach it.
Yeah, it is a really tough one, and it's one that people don't necessarily want to talk about. So especially when you're first starting out, not that, I know Deb, you didn't say you're first starting out, but when you are, it is very tough to figure out what that going rate is if no one will share it with you. So thanks for that advice. I have some questions coming in. Someone asked, what about trading or bartering? So maybe someone can't pay, but could help with something you need. I'll just share real quick for me, I've been finding that with other consultants, if I have a skill that I can train them on, let's say if they have trouble with Zoom and they want to learn how to use it, happy to do that. For maybe, you know, in exchange, can they give me some feedback on a project I'm doing? So I've definitely been doing the bartering. How about Noela and Jacq, any thoughts on bartering or trading?
Yeah, I would say it's gosh, Jacq, I love doing this with you. We think very similar. Okay, so yeah, you know, there's well, I'm going to back up a step and pick up a little bit where Jacq left off. So there's three ways to start looking at your pricing structure, which Jacq already mentioned. Um, well, first you have to figure out how much time it's going to cost you, right? There are costs involved in you providing services. And for us consultants, it's the time factor. How much time, gasoline, you know, paper, these are our costs, right? What is the time factor that I have to invest? The next thing is the competition. Yeah, you just Google it. There are, like Jacq said, there are others out there who are doing something similar. So see what they're charging, right? So you start with your costs, you look at your competition, what are they charging? And then what will your market bear? And I couldn't agree with Jacq more. Having looked at your costs and having looked at your competition and what the field, look at the lay of the land and what others are charging. Now you want to see if you're a beginner consultant. Yeah, the market will only bear so much for you because you're still cutting your teeth. As you mature, then yeah, the market will bear more for you because you have more that you're putting out there on the table, more experience, more credentials, and so forth. So there's that. When you're giving quotations, you know, I agree, you never want to start low. You want to state your value. Well, this is my rate. This is my normal rate, always in writing. Okay. And that's to set the standard because it's very hard to start low and then inch your way up to a higher price point. Because what happens more often than not is we undervalue our service and then we end up spending hundreds of hours and we're losing money. We made maybe $10 an hour on that project, right? So you want to state your value. That's your premium price. All things being equal and the world is in a good place, that's what you would charge. Okay. Then you listen to them and see what they're asking of you. I love bartering. I think bartering's fine as long as they have something to offer you, you know. So that's how you look at it. If I'm going to barter with someone, I sincerely look and say, what is my ROI on this? What is my return on my investment for doing this? When Ku'u asks me to do something, if it's something I'm learning a lot of new, it's a no-brainer. Oh, cool, cool. Oh, you know, Noel, I'm going to pay you to do this. I'm like, yeah, don't pay me because you're paying me. I'm learning something from you. See? So that's an automatic. And that's where you create win-wins. And so when you're bartering, make sure in your heart of hearts that that is something you need for your career. Unless you just purely, that's your population. I love to help Kanaka. I love to help our Native Hawaiian people. So maybe I might offer some help. But if you do the low end or barter, there's some things very important to keep in mind. Number one, you need to have boundaries. We need to have boundaries as consultants. We need to state exactly when we can be available and when we can't be available. And we need to, I have to write this down. We need to narrow the focus, okay? You can say, yes, I can do this, but these things, you know, I have my quiver full right now. And so if you're gonna barter, put the boundaries first. And I'm sure your clients will appreciate that because then they'll know where they can move and they don't wanna be impolite either, right? There are on occasion people who will push those boundaries and people who will test and who will take advantage, you know, and that is you have to just call upon as much grace as you can muster, and you have to train your clients to respect you and to respect your time. You have to train them. If your clients are boundaryless and they're walking all over, it's because we train them that way, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's what I would.
That is amazing advice. We are at the hour, so that went by really fast. Thank you so much. And there were a couple other questions that came in. We didn't get to it, but I have a couple of announcements I want to make. So one is that Noela is a lead business instructor and counselor at the Patsy T. Mink Center for Business and Leadership. And so in that role, she offers free 30-minute consultation, your initial consultation. And I had a great one with Noela. When I was first getting started, she gave me a lot of great advice. So Noela is available for that. Noela, if you don't mind, if you could put your email address in the chat, that would be great.
Yep.
The other thing is that Jacq is the author of Consult, Build Your Successful Solo Business, and she is offering her ebook for free to those of you who are on today's call. So we're going to be sending that out. She also, as she mentioned, she organizes Zoom calls with consultants around the world. She's been doing 2 a week, and so we're gonna have the link to that as well in our follow-up email, and you'll get the recording of today's session. So I'm getting chicken skin because it's just so nice to see when people can share their knowledge and wisdom just to help support our consultant community. So one last thing is, if you don't mind, there is a survey that has been going around and it is about Hawaii self-employed, freelance and gig economy workers. It's just sharing your insights on how COVID has impacted your business. So Brian will be putting that link in the chat. And thank you all so much. Thank you to Jacq. Thank you, Noela. Thank you so much for all the wisdom and the hope and the inspiration that you gave us for today. So with that, aloha everyone.
It's been great. It's really lovely to connect with you all. And yes, I'll definitely make the ebook version of this available to anyone who wants it, and anyone who wants to join those Zoom calls that happen every fortnight. It'd be so lovely to have you. I'll send the info to anyone who I'll send the info to you, Kuʻulani, and then you can send it on to people.
Yes, sounds good.
You can reach me at the Patsy Mink Center for Business and Leadership. I had a brain thing, and I put in an email that you can reach our coordinator directly, Maylin Zambrano. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and have a great long holiday weekend.
Thank you.
Aloha, everyone. Thanks so much. Thanks, Noela.
Yeah, I thought I'd just stay on a second with you.
Mahalo. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.
Okay. Hi there.
Excellent webinar.
Thanks,
Cool.
Brian.
Cool and Brian, you guys make quite a team, I have to say. My compliments to both of you. It feels so seamless when we do it together like this. Thank you so much. And Brian, I am going to go out. I think I promised to do this before, but I'm really going to do it now. Is there a brand